So the agenda for today's workshop, I will first tell you a bit about the framework, its positioning and its mission. It's not as extensive as it is done, the way it's done in the webinar, but it gives you a good sense of what it is and the why. Then we would much like to take some time to get to know one another a bit better, like get an introduction from everyone on the phone, like why are you here? What are you looking to get out of this? That would be really helpful for us. Then Dan will show exactly the how of the framework and also explain where you can find the resources. He will run you through the implementation guide, and he will also provide an update on the current status of the framework and a timeline. We also developed, I think it must have been a year ago now then, a proof of concept, so a working prototype, and he can demo that to you. It's just a behind the scenes demonstration, a look under the bonnet really. It's not an actual platform that has implemented it, it's just a proof of concept really. And then of course, questions and answers session and discussion. So Dan, did you want to add anything to this?
I think you captured it. We want this nature of this to be bi-directional, conversational. So as we go along, please do stop at any point. Let's ask questions and have the chat. Okay.
Yes, please. So let's get going. And I need my next slide. This one. So in 2019, the EU Directive on Copyright in the Digital Single Market was adopted and came into force. Its Article 17 specifically deals with platforms that are typically commercial by nature and which store and give public access to a large amount of protected works. With Article 17, these platforms have become liable for the content they host unless they get authorization from rights holders, so publishers, for instance through a license, or by making best efforts to ensure the unavailability of protected works. Article 17 presents thereby an opportunity for publishers to improve copyright compliance and ensure a better experience for platform users. It as such presents an opportunity for publishers and platforms to collaborate. In light of this, STM put together a working group under STAG to develop the technical processes needed to help publishers provide the relevant and necessary information to platforms. This is a phrase that is used in the directive, the relevant and necessary information. This is something that publishers are obliged to do and provide under Article 17. This to in turn help platforms fulfill their obligation and ensure the unavailability of protected works. These processes are described in the article sharing framework. To provide the relevant and necessary information, publishers are required to embed metadata tags in the PDF content in machine actionable form, this being the DOI and the journal article version, so the JAV. This is tried and tested. Several publishers have already been doing this for a number of years, and we actually estimate that about 6.5 to 7 million articles that have been published in the last 5 years have those DOI and JAV tags. Publishers choose to tag the VOR, but some also tag the AM or the proofs, etc. Secondly, publishers are also required to deposit sharing policy indicators with Crossref. These indicators are again machine actionable and machine identifiable and point to policy pages describing the permissions. So the things that publishers need to do is embed information in the PDFs, this being the DOI and the JAV, and include sharing policy indicators in the metadata deposits they trigger to Crossref. Now, something about the scope of the framework. The framework has been designed for platforms covered by the new obligations set by Article 17. This concerns online content sharing service providers, or OCSSPs as they are referred to in the directive. That is, platforms that are typically commercial in nature and that make available large amounts of content to the public. The DOI and journal article version metadata can be embedded in any journal article PDF, but as part of the framework, publishers are required to deposit sharing policy indicators for content that typically does not bear a Creative Commons license. So as such, the framework applies specifically to subscription and open archive content. Publishers decide themselves whether they want to make this information available for their front files or for their back files too. Though first focus is on getting this up and running for new content, as that is what is typically shared most by researchers. As part of the framework, publishers choose from a carefully defined set of STM sharing policies. And having those publishers coalesce around this limited set of policies is incredibly important to keep matters manageable for platforms. So that said, it's also not possible to deposit your own custom licenses using the framework, because that would really diminish the value and open up the possibility for a proliferation of licenses expressed through the framework, with which platforms might say, okay, there's so much diversity now, this is not doable for us. So this limited set of policies that have been defined by STM members is of great importance. I want to conclude by stressing that the framework is simple yet pragmatic. All information provided is machine identifiable, and as such can be easily implemented and used by platforms to check article shareability automatically and in real time. The framework is scalable. It can be implemented at low or zero cost, and it's available to anyone who wants to make use of it. And the framework is built using existing industry technology and practices. Despite limited in number, the STM sharing policies enable publishers to set the policies precisely the way they want for their content. And as publishers rally around this limited set, it ensures implementation by platforms is manageable. As said, that is truly important. Also, as part of the framework, platforms will obtain all sharing options for a given article version. This means that if platforms would want to identify alternative sharing options, they could get it. Either way, the information provided through the framework is always clear-cut and unambiguous. And lastly, and I think this is quite important to stress, is that the framework is not an upload filter. Platforms choose themselves whether or not to use the information obtained through the framework. The framework cannot prevent any upload from not happening. I think that's the introduction I wanted to give. Dan, did you want to add anything to this?
No, Esther, you captured it.
Great.
I'll just repeat that this is designed to provide the relevant and necessary information to the platforms and not to actually inhibit sharing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I suggest that we now do a quick round of introductions. Dan has put up a proposal of how we can best tackle this right now. So it would be great if everyone could do a quick introduction, mention your name, organization, your role in the framework, the goal for this workshop, and whether you had any familiarity with it already. But I think I asked that one already at the start. So perhaps I can start with myself. I'm Esther Heuver. I'm with Elsevier. My role in ASF is that I've been chairing the STEC working group, which started sometime in fall 2019. And well, as Elsevier is both a publisher, but also has also content platforms, I've got interest from both angles, really. My goal for this workshop is, of course, to help others get to implement the framework and help where and when that is needed. And yes, I'm familiar with the framework, clearly. So Dan, over to you.
Sure. So I'm Dan O'Brien with the American Chemical Society. I've been working with Esther for the past 18 months or so, developing the framework. And my role here is to try and be helpful to implementers, both publishers and platforms who are ready to roll this out. So I helped write the implementation guide and pull some of the resources together that you'll see here. Looking forward to working with you. And I think I will ask Carlo to go next. Hi, Carlo.
Trying to unmute and make myself visible there. Yeah, so I've been accompanying the ASF for some time from a legal point of view. I'm the outside lawyer of the STM Association, and together with my colleague Mathilde, we've been following the Digital Single Market Directive adoption and now guidance that's been issued, and the latest is in fact the YouTube and Elsevier cases that were ruled on by the Court of Justice in Luxembourg. And that sort of regulatory framework, at least for Europe, has provided a incentive to contribute to a framework that can be implemented by platforms with relative ease. And also to accompany, I wanted to make sure this remains sort of an enabling scheme. In other words, it does preserve a lot of freedom for the platforms, but also for the publishers to find that sweet spot where is the system sufficiently standardized so that it can be used at scale and yet sufficiently flexible so it doesn't get in the way of constant development, as the way we use and communicate with content is constantly undergoing changes. So that's why I've been following this for a while, and why I'm very eager to hear this workshop.
Thanks, Carlo. I'll go next to Claudia.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Claudia with STM. I've joined the subgroup working on the article sharing framework probably a year ago, so when the works had already started, but I had been following the approval, the adoption of the copyright directive, so I was interested in the practical side for publishers. And I guess that my role as STM is understanding understanding what's how the framework has been implemented in the different houses, understanding whether there's anything that at STM we can do to bridge bridge the gap, let's say, so either to publishers or to platforms. And because I work in policy and advocacy for STM and I keep relations with the European institutions, it's interesting for me to follow the whole process and get the feedback necessary to bring back to institutions in relation to the copyright directive, but also with other future developments. So I'm really interested to hear what will be discussed and what points and reflections come up today.
Thank you, Claudia. We'll do Mathilde and then and Vincent, if you're still here.
Yeah, my name is Mathilde Rodou. I'm working with Carlo as outside legal counsel for STM mainly. I've been involved into the DSM Directive negotiation long before I joined STM, so it's like a huge part of my life now. And naturally, the development of the article sharing framework, I came naturally to follow as well the great work the state group has been doing in there to find a practical solution for publishers in relation to Article 17 of the DSM Directive. I mean, I'm not going to say much because my colleagues Carlo and Claudia said pretty much everything, so I'm joining them in what they said. The goal for this workshop, well, I'm here a bit in support, I must say, and as well, I'm very excited to hear what the participants to this workshop may have to say and what other questions.
Thanks, Mathilde.
Thank you.
Ed Pitts, and then Vincent, sorry.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Ed Pence. I'm Executive Director of Crossref, and we've been involved with the project for a number of years. Well, really since the beginning. I searched my notes, and I actually have some notes from October 2015. right? It was at the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2015. And looking at the notes, it was very sort of early stage, very speculative, about what are the, what are different options and things. And so obviously it's been ongoing discussions for a while, but Crossref's involved in supporting making this work, and I think it's really great that we can reuse existing infrastructure. At the moment, there are some changes that are needed now that sort of I guess in the sort of last, there have been times since 2015, obviously, where nothing was happening, but I think there's been a lot of activity recently, and so there's some changes to the Crossref schema that need to be made, and really that's just it's some details, but it's tied up with some other Crossref developments, so that's ongoing. So we're just coordinating on that, but what publishers need to do is very clear. So it's nothing on that front is going to change now. Now that this is rolling out. But I myself hadn't been directly involved for a while, so yeah, wanted to sort of get a refresher from my own point of view, really.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ed. Yeah, so for everyone, it was back in 2015, just shortly after the STM voluntary principles for article sharing were published, that we thought, okay, we've published this document now, but what are the next steps? And that's when we started to think about, okay, what do we need? And it was a first version of the framework as we have it today. I think that a year later or so, it was put on the back burner, really. And there's of other things going on in the industry, like for instance, seamless access or Sci-Hub and ResearchGate as well. But it was in light of the Article 17 stuff that this became very, very relevant again. And that we thought, okay, what we designed back in 2015 was actually a very solid and good thing. Let's pick it up and review thoroughly, do some future proofing, and that's where we are now. So thank you, Ed. Vincent.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm Vincent Lizzie. I work for Taylor and Francis. I've come onto this project fairly recently, helping Esther and Dan first with the ALI update for NISO and then with the framework, helping with the implementation for Taylor and Francis. And I'm also very interested to hear what other implementers and participants in this workshop have to say.
And Vincent's been a huge assist behind the scenes, almost to a silent partner. So thanks a bunch, Vincent. You've been very, very helpful. Who wants to go next?
I can go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Apple, and I'm with the Massachusetts Medical Society, and I'm legal counsel for the Society's publishing group. We publish the New England Journal of Medicine. I'm a member of the STM Intellectual Property Committee, so I'm somewhat familiar with the article sharing framework, and through conversations that have come up with STM. But I'm very much interested in learning more about a little bit more about how it works and what level of effort would actually be involved with our organization trying to implement it. And I guess the other thing I would be really interested in hearing a bit about, hearing some others' thoughts on what your thoughts might be and how to communicate to some of our management group as to really why this is something it makes sense for us to participate in, and why we should do this. If you had some thoughts on concise and clear ways to communicate that, I'd be all ears. So I think that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, great, good point. We'll come back to that in a
good idea.
second. Then Jennifer, I guess.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mayfield. I'm from the Optical Society. I guess my role here, I'm filling in for my boss, who's probably has jet lag this morning. So my role at OSA, like we're a publisher, we have our own content platform. We're also a service provider. So we're kind of heavily involved with trying to make sure we keep up with these new directives and to make sure that we're meeting guidelines and providing services for our authors. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you very much. I think we've then had all. I noticed that Amanda had to drop off,
Yeah, I
unfortunately.
think so.
Oh, we've got Sanghamitra. Would you like to introduce yourself as well? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Sanghamitra? All right.
Okay.
Let's go ahead. We've got only 30 minutes left. Oh no, 34. So Dan, I think over to you to get into the details.
Sounds good. Yeah. So if you could stop sharing, Esther, I think I will share my slides. Okay, can you see my slide? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Again, we will keep this as conversational. This is not meant to be a one-way presentation. So if at any point have questions, just stop me along the way here. As Esther said, we are, this is a pretty simple framework at its core. Publishers deposit information into the PDF of the article and into Crossref for the platforms to pick up. This is machine readable information. And this is not a pre-built application. This is a framework for platforms to implement and publishers to contribute. It's a set of services and technologies that are available to automate. So specifically, publishers will add information to the PDF, like Esther mentioned, and also deposit sharing policy indicators into Crossref for then to platforms to extract and to look up. We'll look at these quickly one by one. Publishers. We have two fields that we add to the PDF, and as Esther said, there are a lot of articles out there already that already have this information being added. I think there's up to, I believe, 6 publishers adding these fields today. It's the article DOI and the journal article version, the JAV. Some of you may know JAV. It's a NICE recommended practice. It lists several versions. We're only using 3 of those versions in this framework, even though there are more that exist. So there's 2 ways we're asking publishers to put this information into the PDF. One way is through the XMP metadata section in the PDF, and here's a screenshot of how that looks within Adobe. Another way is to add it also to a DOI hyperlink on the first page. So here's a screenshot of a first page of an ACS article. If we zoom in to the bottom right, you see a DOI hyperlink. And if you hover over that hyperlink, you see there's more information actually encoded into that. One of that pieces is the JAV. The reason we're doing 2 encoding methods. One method is because we found that sometimes the XMP metadata can be stripped. Sometimes unintentionally, maybe intentionally, but it can be stripped along the way by the time the PDF gets to the platform. And also, some older PDFs don't support XMP. So this is a fallback approach so that platforms have a greater chance of being able to extract the DOI and the JAV. The 2 ways that a publisher can put information into the PDF. The one way is when the PDF is generated upon composition, during production. Right when the PDF is generated, put it in there. Another point is actually when the PDF is delivered to the end user. ACS does both, actually. We, for newly published articles, we add it to the PDF when it's generated because our PDFs go to multiple places. We have multiple distributions. But for older content, our delivery system injects those fields at the point of delivery. So publishers also will deposit sharing policy indicators to Crossref. There are 4 sharing policy contexts, each with a few options. The combination of these add up to 48 different policies, but not publishers won't use all of those. Usually a publisher will just use just a very small handful of them. The JAV is the same JAV that's being encoded into the PDF here. This is an extract of the different permutations of those sharing policy contexts. And each combination results in a sharing policy DOI. This sharing policy DOI, or a combination of them, are added to Crossref. And that's what a platform uses to determine the sharing policy rights. I'm going to pause for a second. Questions so far? Okay. This is just by way of example, Elsevier and ACS's sharing policies, again, for subscription articles. The primary focus of this framework is subscription articles. We're not going to dive into these tables. I'll just point out the level of green permissiveness that's related to Elsevier versus ACS. Elsevier has more green, more permissive in some contexts, so they have more policy sharing framework policy IDs to map to their articles. A given article within ACS, within Elsevier may have 6 different policies to assert, and ACS may only have 3. Okay, once a publisher determines which STM article sharing framework policies map to their publisher shared policies, the publisher will start depositing these policy indicators to Crossref when they publish the article. This is consistently with the ALI. We also support embargoed permissions. So if a publisher wants to assert a set of permissions today and a different set tomorrow or in 12 months, there's a start date attribute that can be used to assert which policy is in place at a given time. So this makes use of the same license ref structure that is in Crossref today and is driving Chorus. For Chorus, publishers deposit public use licenses to the license ref area within Crossref. The article sharing framework here will do something similar. Instead of a public use license, publishers are depositing a sharing policy identifier. Okay, onto the platform. Again, platforms use the information in the PDF. There's two methods that publishers use. Platforms should look for the DOI and the JAV in both locations. And once they extract that information from the PDF, they'll use that to do a lookup into Crossref to determine what sharing policies exist. As an example, if a PDF articulated that it had a DOI here and a JAV of VOR, version of record, the platform would use the version of record and determine the other sharing contexts that they expect to use. The platform should know if they've signed or have not signed the voluntary principles. That platform should know whether they're intending to share the article with a global audience or a research collaboration group. And the platform should know whether they're intending to share the full text or something less than that. So the combination of those 4 attributes results in a specific policy, one of those 48 policies that they're looking for in Crossref. If that policy is found in Crossref, then it can be shared. So for this given article DOI within the Crossref profile, ACS would have deposited policy number 29, which is what the platform is looking for here. So if there's a match, that's saying that the article can be shared according to this context. However, if the platform has a different sharing context, let's say they are not signed, they want to share with a global audience, and that policy that they are looking for, policy 001 in this case, is not in the Crossref record, the article cannot be shared. That's what the platform is intending to get from this this framework. I'm going to stop there for a second. Questions on what we've seen so far?
I have a question. How is if publishers use Crossmark and we share a policy link, is that different than this?
I am not too familiar with how Crossmark would affect this. I wonder if Ed, if you have any context there, but I don't think there's going to be a direct impact here.
No, I don't think so.
I think Crossmark is primarily for expressing additional metadata.
Yeah, so there's questions about you can include information in Crossmark, but the Crossmark pop-up box, but there's the status of the article, so any corrections or retractions, those sort of automatically go in. Everything else is optional, so it wouldn't automatically go in. I mean, theoretically, you could include this in there, but yeah, you wouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there are plans to do that.
Okay, thank you.
It has been discussed in the STEC group. It has come up as a suggestion of like, could we put this information in Crossmark? So Jennifer, your question is not a strange one at all.
Yeah.
But it was decided that it wouldn't be the best way forward. I can't recall the exact reasoning for that, motivation for that.
I think we
Dan?
toyed with the idea of using Crossmark to express this data directly as the mechanism to assert this data. But I think we settled on using the OLLI section directly within the Crossmark schema.
Yeah.
Other questions? That was a good one.
Dan, a question.
Hi, Carla.
Yeah, the information is deposited at the time of publication, but also applies to AMs. So is it applying, do you also deposit in relation to AMs then?
Sure. So a publisher can also retroactively deposit information for an AM, even if the DOI is known before article publication, a publisher can deposit then. What ACS would likely do is deposit for the version of record and AM all at the same time upon publication.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Keep the questions coming. I have a couple more slides, but not much. I'll switch over to a proof of concept demonstration in a second. Any other questions here? Okay. Again, on sharing policy indicators and Crossref, the platform should look for the start date to look for the embargo, see if the sharing policies apply immediately or in the future. And this is just a recap. Publishers put information into the PDF and into Crossref for the platforms to retrieve and to look up. So timelines, right now, what can publishers do? Publishers, if you're not already adding DOI and JAV to your PDFs, you can start that now. The more we get out there, the more information, the more PDFs will be compatible with the framework and will allow platforms to find those and extract the information from them. So start adding the DOI and the JAV to your PDFs. Platforms can also develop the extraction for the DOI and JAV, and the proof of concept I'll show shows how easy that is to implement with open source technologies.
Sorry,
please,
just a quick question for Jennifer and Joe, I think. Do you already produce XMP metadata sections for your PDFs, and do you already include DOI? I'm asking as a wonder, like, how easy would that be for you to add JAV to this as well?
We do include metadata, embedded metadata in the PDF file. We have the copyright URL to our copyright, and we also have the DOI on the first page of the PDF. But we don't have the JAV extension on our DOI, so.
Yeah.
But if we have the copyright policy link embedded, is that enough, having those two things?
So what would we want to see is the DOI of the article and also the version of the article encoded into the PDF, so that can be retrieved later by the platform.
I see.
I've seen a lot of publishers already add machine readable article title, machine readable authors to their PDFs. This is just another machine readable couple fields to add it into that same way.
Yeah, we have the DOI to our license agreement in the the version of record or accepted manuscript version.
Joe, did you have a question?
No, I think I was just going to add that I think it sounds like we do something that's somewhat similar. That we do use DOIs with most of our content types,
Sure.
but I don't think we're currently adding JAV tags to most.
Okay. So just half step next then on that, right? It's pretty straightforward to add the JAV tags to either at the point of creation or even retroactively to insert those tags.
Okay.
So as Ed mentioned, later this summer and fall, we're expecting Crossref will help us with some tweaks to their schema to support the changes to OLLI. And also, part of that, we can start depositing these sharing policies that you saw into Crossref for platforms to look up. So resources for implementers, with both publishers and service providers and platforms. I'm going to change my sharing here. You should be able to look at the STM's article sharing framework site. We have all of our resources posted out here. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, that's where we have most of our resources listed. One of them is the implementation guide, integration guide. And I'll show that in a second. Another is an Excel spreadsheet that has a lot of useful information for the policies themselves. The implementation guide, I'm not going to step through here. I'll ask you to take a look at that on your own. And if with any questions you have, feel free to email us, to contact us, and we'd be happy to talk through that with you. At a high level, there's two parts to the integration guide. One part is all about the PDF, getting the information into the PDF and what platforms would do to extract the information from the PDF. Second part is all about the Crossref part of that. What the sharing contexts are, publishers putting the sharing policy identifiers into Crossref, and platforms extracting them from Crossref. Okay. What I'm going to do next is do a quick proof of concept demo. This is intended to illustrate the feasibility of this framework. It's not intended to show a user experience. So it's just to show the concepts behind this framework from a platform perspective. The first step is a platform would know whether or not they have signed with STM voluntary principles for sharing. And in this case, we're going to simulate that they have indeed shared, have indeed signed. And next, we will upload a PDF. So this is real. This is not simulation. We're actually taking a PDF and uploading it to this proof of concept. And in a second, the PDF has been examined by the server, and 2 sets of metadata have been extracted from that PDF. The XMP, DOI, and the version of record, and also the same data from the URL string. Just for a second, I will show a copy of that PDF. Let's see. So here's the PDF. And we can see down here, if I zoom in, this is the, in real small type, this is the DOI hyperlink, and there is a JAV encoded into that hyperlink. And there's also, if we go to properties, and look at some additional metadata. And apologies, my Adobe is not listening to me right now. But there, if Adobe was showing the screen, you would see there were 2 fields, one for DOI and another for journal article version in the machine readable format in this PDF. So back to the demo. Those fields have been extracted from the PDF. And the next step is, in this simulation, a platform would determine what their expected sharing contexts are. Are they going to share the article with a research collaboration group or with a global general audience? In this case, we're going to share with the research collaboration group. The last sharing context is the intent to share the full text or the abstract or something less than the full text. And we're going to select full text for this. And in this case, the publisher had deposited policy 29 into the Crossref record for this article. That's what the platform was looking for. And so the article can be shared. If we just go back one step, though, and make a different choice, if the platform was looking for permission to share with the general audience, can't be shared because the publisher did not deposit a policy sharing indicator for that sharing context. So we made the source code available for download here. It uses free or open source technology. It's intended to illustrate feasibility and the concepts. So publishers and platforms are welcome to make use of that. With that, I think we are at a Q&A section.
Thank you, Dan.
What questions? Yeah, what questions does this raise? In what ways can Esther and I and others help you prepare for implementation?
So I think I would like to go back to the question Joe raised at the start of the session, like how can I convince leadership to do this? Why should they do this? And please, Carlo and Claudia, chime in if I say completely wrong. But if I had to use 2 or 3 sentences, I would say if you as a publisher want to put an end to copyright infringement, if you want to improve copyright compliance, or if you as a platform want to avoid liability for copyright infringement, then implement the article sharing framework. Work together, provide the information that platforms need in order to be to comply with your policies. I think that's it. Carlo, what do you say?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty much correct what you're saying. I mean, essentially, if you're, you know, with these DSM rules and the YouTube Elsevier decision, you are, as a platform that hosts, you know, specialized content that the platform understands, you have to have some kind of technology available to identify compliant versus non-compliant content. So that basically helps you to find, if you're the platform, what you can legally display when a user uploads it onto your platform. So that helps you to stay on the right side of the law if you're a platform. If you're the publisher, then if you do not give this information widely away, then in relation to, maybe the Massachusetts Medical Society, platforms can basically wait for the notice and takedown whack-a-mole game and say, we have scouted around for, you know, available information, what to display. There is none available, hence we will display until we get a DMCA notice. And I think that experience for the user is suboptimal, because they might get super excited at the time of uploading, and then 2 days later your Spider engine is sending out an automated takedown, and then you repeat this and repeat this and repeat this and repeat this in an endless loop until one of you gives up. I think that's not a good system. I think this is a far better system.
Check it up front. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that sounds, I mean, I think that's a good reason to do something like this. I agree. I guess the one thought that I'm wondering about is I can envision or anticipate questions about, you know, this system works to the extent that you have a number of publishers that participate, and also to the extent that a number of platforms participate. And I guess when there are, you know, competing efforts underway and limited resources, I can envision that some may take the position, you know, how much work do we want to put into this if we don't know that there's going to be great uptick by the platforms. And, you know, I guess that's the piece that I'm sort of
makes sense. Yeah. It's a bit of a catch-22 or a chicken and egg, isn't it? I mean, if you're a platform scouting around, you want to do the right thing, what will you implement? So it's kind of chicken and egg, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the more, I guess, the more publishers that participate, the more attractive it is, you know, as a solution for platforms to work. So we're investing in our future in that sense.
And that's one of the reasons we really wanted to try to leverage existing services and technologies. We'll put information in where publishers are already putting information in for other purposes, into Crossref, into the PDF, and making use of services that platforms are already using, extracting information from the PDFs and Crossref. So we're hoping that adds up to a much lower lift level of effort for a lot of platforms and publishers.
And for everyone, there are 7 publishers, large publishers, that have implemented the JAV and DOI tags already in their PDFs. This being the ACS, Taylor Francis, Springer Wiley, Elsevier, IOP, and AIP. So we have a large chunk of content that's published annually that has those tags already for the VORs, but also for AMs or for proofs. Based on these webinars and workshops we've held so far, we've seen that there is interest amongst publishers that have attended to also implement this. Next step, of course, for those publishers is to also map the sharing policy identifiers to their content and start depositing those with Crossref. That's the next step. But in a way, Joe, I mean, publishers already include metadata in their PDFs. This is just a matter of adding more metadata there. Publishers are also already triggering content deposits to Crossref. This is a matter of adding some additional information. So in that sense, we expect that more publishers will join this initiative shortly. Then, of course, the platforms, clearly, if you're talking about those OCSSP, so large platforms that make available large portions of content to the public, you think of academia and ResearchGate and so on. Carlo is starting up those conversations with those parties directly, and they need to abide by the law as well, right? So there should be some interest, but more to follow on that in due time. What I can say is that we've got Mendeley at Elsevier. I mean, we enable sharing as well, be it in research collaboration groups, but there's a use case for it. Oh, am I still there?
Yeah, you're there.
Did I drop? Oh, sorry.
You're still there. I can
and
hear
we've got SSRN, the preprint server, which is a platform that makes available content to the public. So we need to make very sure that the content we make available is only preprints and not VORs of subscription articles. So that's where it's relevant to us as well.
I mean, also to your point, Joe.
Yes, I'm here.
I mean, this. I would view this as the big. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear it.
I would view this as the beginning of a conversation. It's. I mean, no offense to the DOI and its success, but probably when it started, you also didn't know whether it was going to lift off, and it did in a phenomenal way. I'm not saying this will be the same, but this could be the start of a conversation between platforms and publishers. It doesn't need to be the end of it.
That's a good point, Carlo. Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Bad internet connection today.
No worries.
I'm not sure how much or where I was cut off, but anyway, I think we're running out of time as well. And what I wanted to say is that we will work on a document that can be shared with leadership at every publishing house or platform that can help encourage people to get involved and implement the framework.
That's probably what you're looking for, Joe, right? It's some kind of small marketing, internal marketing packet.
I think that would be very helpful and frankly very useful. And certainly in my case, yeah, that would be great.
Great. Okay.
Then I think we've run out of time. I want to thank everyone very, very, very much for joining this session, for your interest in the framework, and the recording will be made available on the article sharing framework page on STM. So thank you very much, and we'll keep you posted.
Please reach out to us with questions. We have an email address right here. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
all.
It was very, very helpful. I appreciate it.
Good. Great.
Thank
Have a good
you.
day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.